The experiences section of your resume covers quite a bit of, well, experiences. This section can include work and internship experiences as well as volunteer experiences. Then we'll focus on the awards and honors section, where you get to brag about some of your accomplishments. We'll end with a brief discussion on the references section.
Here are our 2 example resumes again, with the experiences and awards and honors sections included. Both of these examples are looking quite professional, so let's look at some points to see how they got there. Quite a bit of descriptive information should be included in your experiences section. If you're listing a work or internship experience, here are some things to include. I first want to point out that you should always start your descriptions with action verbs. I'll show you a huge list of possible verbs in just a minute. Also, notice that your verbs should be parallel and should be in the correct tense. If you're still completing an experience, your verb should be present tense, but if it happened in the past, use past tense verbs. Also, be sure to vary your verbs so your resume is not repetitive. Most of the same information is required for volunteer experiences. Again, notice that you should try your best to tailor each experience to the job you are applying for. Remember how we mentioned earlier that Naviance was kind of like a repository to hold all of your information? This is the time to be selective and choose the experiences that best fit what you're applying for. Be sure that you can speak passionately, though, about any experiences you choose to put on your resume. Don't just list them to list them. When you go into your interview, the interviewer is going to intuitively know if you just listed things to fill up the page or if you can carry on a conversation discussing your experiences. Here's the list of action verbs I mentioned, and this list will be available for you to use. We'll put it in the attachments of this video series, so be sure to take a look at it. I know it's a little small here, but check it out on those attachments, and please use these action verbs. You don't want to start with the word I. You always want to start with one of these great action verbs. So let's take another look at the experience sections of our example resumes. In this experience section, you can see that there are 2 experiences listed that Callie is still currently doing right now. So she has them listed with the date she started to present. And then one from the past here. You'll notice that they are in reverse chronological order, just like our education section was. And take a look at these great action verbs. Assist with the process, teach kids, help children, scanned files. Never do you start with the word I. You always want to start with those action verbs. Here's our other experience section. And again, you'll notice this present tense one that Mary is still doing. She starts with a present tense verb. But if things happen in the past, we've got our past tense verbs. And the verbs are varied. They're never using the same verb over and over again. Now we're going to move on to the awards and honors section. When you're thinking about which honors and awards to include, the OWL Lab gives us these rules of thumb. And remember, you want to include ones that are the most relevant to the job in which you are applying, just like you did when you were including your experiences. Some other tips for the section are listed here. This awards handout can be found in the attachments of these videos as well. Also, again, notice we're not including anything prior to high school. Purdue's OWL Lab also provides examples of these 2 approaches for awards and honors. The reason you might choose one over the other depends on how much room you have remaining on the page, keeping in mind that you don't want your resume to be more than 1 page. Let's take a look at how our 2 examples utilized each of these approaches, the minimalist approach and the elaborated approach. So here we see the minimalist approach. They're listed in reverse chronological order. Notice that Mason High School was spelled out fully. It doesn't say MHS, and it lists the name of each award. So this would be the minimalist approach. And you'll notice this person had to use the minimalist approach because they were nearly to the end of their one-page resume. On the other hand, here we have an example of the elaborated approach. Again, we've still got the name of the award and it's all spelled out, no abbreviations. But then we also have a description underneath. You'll notice that they started with action verbs, just as we did up in the experience section. Now, you've probably noticed that each of our resumes also ends with a references section. In each of the references section, you probably are only going to have room to say available upon request. And here again, available upon request, because hopefully your one-page professional resume is so full of great information about you that you don't have the room to include all of your references. Now, you'll obviously need to create a references sheet, but that's another video series.
Well, that's a lot of information to cover. We'll be sure to attach some supporting documents to this video series so that you can go back and refer to things like the action verbs we discussed and also the Mason Awards list.